Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to a brand new breaking reporting analysis video. To start your morning off with a primary. Let's get into this reporting. Today we have a reporting by the New York Times. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the latest to start your day. First off, Ziran Memande claimed victory in New York City's Democratic primary for mayor. Much of the country is in a heat wave. The Israel-Iran ceasefire appears to be holding. U.S. strikes set Iran's nuclear program back by only a few months, a primary report found. Also, women are joining the We Do Not Care club. All of that is below. Ladies and gentlemen, a shock in New York by the New York Times. By the morning team. It was a major upset. Ziran Memande, Memandi, yes, that's how you spell his name. A 33-year-old Democratic socialist, who campaigned against New York's affordability crisis, stunned the former governor Andrew Cuomo of New York in the Democratic primary for New York City mayor. Memandi's victory is not yet official. The city uses ranked choice ballots, and those votes are not yet tabulated, but experts say it would be exceedingly difficult for Cuomo to overcome Memandi's 7-point lead. Memandi claimed victory, and Cuomo conceded to the race last night. The result has created a new star for the party. Memandi is a state assemblyman who ran on a progressive platform that promised to make buses free and raise taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers. It is also a rebuke for Cuomo, who spent millions more than his opponents. He had the support of establishment Democrats like Bill Clinton, but he struggled to overcome the scandals that ended his governorship. Cuomo told The Times last night that he was still considering whether to run in the general election as an independent, with Mayor Eric Adams also running as an independent, and Curtis Sliwa on the Republican ticket. New York may have a crowded race for mayor in November. Here are takeaways on the results and 5 things to know about Memundi. Ladies and gentlemen, Mercury rising. For much of the country, yesterday was a scorcher in a week of scorchers, sidewalks baked, windows shown, surplus clothing came off. New York City's official thermometer notched a 13-year high of 90 degrees. Scores of other cities beat or tied heat records as a dome trapped hot air in the South, the Northeast, and the Midwest. Alerts warned people to exercise caution or better to stay inside. This is the deadliest weather threat we face, New York City's Emergency Management Agency on social media wrote. Don't wait until you feel sick. Heat builds up compounds. It compounds. It kills quietly. Two phenomena, pneumonia explains why heat waves are so horrid. One is about how we experience temperature. The other is about how we exasperate it. Today's newsletter covers both and how to protect yourself from the weather. Ladies and gentlemen, humanity works. A thermometer tells only part of the story. Nazanin Ghaffar, Ghaffar, a reporter in the with the Times weather team, explains. A dry 99-degree Fahrenheit in Phoenix might feel harsh but bearable. The same temperature in New York or Philadelphia this week is oppressive, partly because of how much water vapor is in the air. Normally, when your body gets too hot, it perspires to cool down. The evaporation of sweat carries heat away, acting like a natural air conditioner. But when humidity surges, the air is already saturated with moisture, slowing that evaporation process down. To capture that effect, the National Weather Service uses something called the heat index. That's when the meteorologist says that it's 85 degrees outside, but feels like 97. Greenville, in the heart of the Mississippi Delta, reached only 92 degrees on Tuesday, but with a 64% humidity, the heat index was 107 degrees, and that was in the shade. The service says that standing in full sun can make the temperature, feel as much as 15 degrees hotter. Ladies and gentlemen, pollution. The twin health hazards of extreme heat and pollution can amplify each other, and the frequency of days that are both hot and polluted is rising. As Claire Brown and Christina Kelso report, after a few years of brutal wildfires, we know there's often more junk in the air. Climate change is making the fires more frequent and intense, pumping smoke into the atmosphere. Meanwhile, the Trump administration wants to ease restrictions on emissions from power plants and cars, which could increase carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, particulate matter, and other pollutants. It is also encouraging more mining and burning of coal, the dirtiest of the fossil fuels. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 airmen two main air conditioning pollutants affect our health and heat can worsen for both. Ozone summer days tend to see higher concentrations of this gas, which is harmful when it forms near the ground. Hot and sunny conditions accelerate that process. Ground level ozone irritates the lungs and can cause coughing and shortening of breath. Particulate matter. This refers to tiny pieces of solid and liquids in the air, all smaller than a grain of sand or thinner than a strand of hair. Particles smaller than 2.5 micrometers are the most dangerous. When inhaled, they can reach the deepest part of the lungs and pass into the bloodstream, hurting your heart, lungs, and brain. Extreme heat also makes wildfires more severe, and resulting smoke full of particulate matter can travel thousands of miles. What's the effect, you may ask? A 2023 analysis of more than 20 million deaths across the world found that hot days and days with bad air quality both resulted in higher than mortality rates, but periods in which heat and pollution were combined were even more deadly. Try this, ladies and gentlemen. What should you do when it's this hot? Simmer Bajaj, Bajaj said, BAJAJ, who covers personal health, compiled several ideas from experts. Here are 3 of them. 1. Check your meds. Some drugs, including those for allergies, high blood pressure, kidney disease, hyperthyroidism, and various mental illnesses, make it harder for people to cool down. Others, like diuretics and certain antidepressants, can represent your thirst and cause more frequent urination and sweating, but don't skip your doses without talking to your doctor. The second one is eat to hydrate. Your body gets about 20% of its water from food. Raw fruits and vegetables, including cucumbers, lettuce, celery, and tomatoes, and strawberries and melons, are among the most hydrating foods. Avoid alcohol and limit coffee. They are dehydrating. The third one, ladies and gentlemen, is cool down before you lie down. Temperature is one of the most important factors for getting a good night's rest, and experts recommend keeping your bedroom at 65 degrees or 68 degrees Fahrenheit. If air conditioners and fans aren't doing the trick, you can also take a cold shower. Spray your sheets with cold water or put your pillowcase in the freezer before bed. Ladies and gentlemen, time for the latest news. About the Iran-Israel conflict. The ceasefire between Israel and Iran appeared to hold after President Donald Trump lashed out at them for firing on each other. Both sides are claiming victory. U.S. strikes set back Iran's nuclear program by only a few months, and underground facilities survived the attack. A preliminary U.S. intelligence report found. Trump said the report was very inconclusive. The American B-2 warplanes that bombed Fordo, Iran's best protected nuclear site, flew for 37 hours straight. Qatar officials helped broker the ceasefire. More than 50 years ago, the U.S. gave Iran its first nuclear reactor. Late-night hosts joked about Trump swearing during his outburst at Iran and Israel. Katrina Benhold and Christina Goldbaum, 2 reporters for The Times, explained how Iran became isolated from its allies in the war. Ladies and gentlemen, NATO summit. Trump is at NATO's annual meeting in The Hague, HAGUE, pressing other members of nations member nations to raise their military spending. World leaders want to keep him happy. One complication to watch for is the Span has said it's unwilling to spend more. The wars in Ukraine and the Middle East are also overshadowing the talks. Anthony Weiner, the former House member who went to prison for sexting a 15-year-old girl, ran for a city council district in yesterday's New York primary. Results overnight put him in fourth. America's rivals, including China and Russia, are happy about Trump's decision to dismantle Voice of America, which helped market the U.S. to the world. The courts. The Trump administration asked the Supreme Court to clarify whether the U.S. can send 8 men from other countries to South Sudan after a ruling on deportations this week. Emil Bove III, a former Justice Department official, said he was willing to ignore court orders to enable the president's deportation campaign, according to a whistleblower. The Attorney General predicted that Kilmer Armando Abrego Garcia, the immigrant mistakenly deported to El Salvador, would be easy to convict on federal charges, but a judge's ruling suggests the case has serious cracks. A federal court ordered the Trump administration to facilitate the return of another man it deported to El Salvador minutes after the court barred his removal. Other big stories, ladies and gentlemen. The 4 astronauts took off for the International Space Station, including the first to visit it from Hungary, India, and Poland. Amazon is building one of the largest computers ever on 1,200 acres of cornfield in Indiana. It will power an AI system intended to match the human brain. Investigators said a single bolt could have kept a panel from flying off an Alaska Airlines flight in mid-air last year. A 29-year-old man was struck by lightning and killed while on his honeymoon in Florida. A sudden storm killed 8 people on a birthday boat ride on Lake Tahoe. In one map, U.S. officials have been asking countries around the world to take deportees who are not their citizens. The countries shown in the map below including places shattered by war, like Libya or Ukraine, and some known for human rights abuses like Turkmenistan. So far, 7 countries have agreed to take deportees. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we're gonna have for this morning edition. Tune back in later for more legal, breaking news this evening.